Hi, Jim Fraser.
Hi, Tori Hughes.
Tori, pleasure.
Had a chance to read your bio on the extranet. Pretty
impressive, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Today we wanted to talk to you a little bit about this concept that you call RIDEM and how you came up with it, and are you the founding person of this concept?
Well, first off, one of the things I was moving towards at that time in my life, and I think that's one of the things you realize as a trainer, you go through different junctures of where you are and how you see things. I mean, example, like one time I was a PowerPoint ranger. I love to do PowerPoint. Today, you don't see me do a lot. I still can do it. I just don't do as much of it. But I was looking for principle-based education. You know, what I found out, I had a master's degree that focused on adult learning. And what I found was that I almost knew too much. And I had to get down to the principles rather than a lot of stuff and things. It was very difficult because when I was trying to teach it, I wasn't sure everybody was getting it because I had a whole kind of waterfront to give them, you know, too much information. So I was looking for something that was simple, made sense, and would have a memory aid. So the more I thought about it, what are the things that make sense to me? What are what I call the big rocks? You know, the big rocks to me were, is it relevant? Get a hook in there. Is it something that they can use and take back to the job? They know why are we giving them this? And so that's the place that it starts. So it is getting their early, I think, buy-in of what we're trying to teach them. And they see a reason for it. You can make that connection and they understand it. And the second one was that one of the real tenets of adult learning is to move from a passive classroom to an active classroom. And think about all your law enforcement training. A lot of times you're sitting in a room back there in the back and nobody cares whether you're even there. You know, and so the idea here is in an adult learning classroom is to make sure that you have plenty of opportunity to be involved and actually get those wheels turning and do things that make sense. And then the D is the discovery, and that's to me that aha moment. But you know, discovery has more pieces than a lot of people talk about it. We talk about an aha moment, but you might discover that something you know is wrong. Something you thought was right, some way you were previously taught is not correct. And so that's one of the discovery issues you have. And one of the things we want you to also discover is some of your previous training, some of the other training going on can be connected together. I think there's a lot of things in training today that's very modularized and you don't see the connection from one block to the other. The little activities you did today, you could see some connection to some of those things, how they work together, how they're connected one place to the other. So that's where the discovery really comes in. And then the experience base is that with adults, the individuals in our classroom are a rich resource to build on. So we think about that. How can we use the people? What do they bring to the classroom? You know, for instance, if I had somebody like you who has a unique experience in a jail system, in a county that has a jail system, property, that kind of stuff, then I can take advantage of the skills you bring to the classroom, stuff I wouldn't have. Or an IA person who has, you know, going through internal investigations all the time. He sees the world from a different perspective than I see it from. So I don't bring that. I don't have that background. I don't have that experience. My job is to tap that experience and see it as a rich resource we can use and to make the learning really take place. And then finally, the last one is modeling. And you think about it, you know, modeling is something we all do, whether we believe it or not. You know, sometimes you find yourself at that stage in life where you realize you're modeling people you didn't wish you were modeling. You know, sometimes you're modeling, you know, you say, well, when I become a parent, I'm never going to do that. When I grow up, I'm not going to be like my mom and dad. And we look back and we do a lot of things just like our mom and dad did. Even the good things we hope we do, but occasionally it's not the good things. And I would expect all of us had some relationships with things like our FTO that have stuck with us. You know, we do things that we say, hey, whatever I learn, when I learn it from the FTO, in fact, that's kind of the thing that happens to us. The things we learn first in life stick with us sometimes the longest. And so that's kind of where what RIDEM was all about. So when I put it together, I wanted to have a simple acronym. And when you think about RIDEM, it's nothing but a memory aid. But once you got that memory aid, it's easy to go through it and say relevance, involvement, discovery, experience, and modeling. So, questions?
Based on your research, how did you come to RIDEM? I mean, who did you follow, or what kind of information?
Well, I did. I mean, unfortunately, I was trained by Malcolm Knowles. I mean, I think that's probably something that a lot of people don't have the advantage of. It's nice to be able to have been trained by the expert. It'd be like you as a golfer, that you were trained by Jack Nicklaus, or somebody who was a renowned Ledbetter or somebody like that. That's pretty powerful. I mean, other people have been taught by him teaching you, but in this case, he taught you. So that was powerful from my standpoint. And I got to see Malcolm Knowles, the practitioner. Most people know Malcolm Knowles through his books, or know him from what other writings have to say about him. But one of the things I'll never forget about Malcolm Knowles, and he said this to me, is that I'm in control of that classroom. It's not obvious control. It's not control that is overwhelming, as we say, in an instructor-centered environment, but he owns that process. He knows what the process is. He knows what he's trying to accomplish out of that process, and his responsibility is to make sure that's accomplished. So that part was part of why that happened and where my background came from. And so I did that back in the 70s, so I'm an early practitioner of adult learning, and I've been very fortunate in the things that I've done with California Post and other training that I've done to be able to use it as a laboratory and to get to see things and hone them. And I've got my own brand today, which I think has a lot of Jim Fraser on it, but it has a lot of Malcolm Knowles on it. I mean, I don't think I can ever eliminate that, but I've put my own brand of what I think is good on it and honed it to a place that I think it works. And most of my training, because of my background and my experience and what I've done, has been with law enforcement people. So obviously my stuff works very well with law enforcement.
So when you're preparing to teach a course, how do you go about applying RIDEM? Is this something that you sit down?
I'm thinking about it all the time. I mean, I'm thinking about how is this relevant to the student. That's the first place I'm always asking myself. Is this something they need? Is it relevant to them? How can I get them doing something? You see, when I'm in this classroom, to me, I've always got to try to be involved doing something, and always trying to discover something you didn't discover before. Even when we do these debriefings, and I ask you questions, I'm trying to get you to discover you learned something you don't realize you learned, and that's part of the discovery part of that. And I want to build on, again, the various experiences in there, and I want to model the behavior. And one of the things I always tell people, I am not trying to make you a clone of Jim Fraser. And that would be a disaster. I'm Jim Fraser. I'm a personality made up of a lot of factors, a lot of experience, a lot of things. What I want you to be is I want you to be Tory years doing your thing. And I want you to build it on your skills, your background, your experiences, and not try to be a clone. And you've got to find out where that is. You've got to shape yourself to be the best you can be and bring the best out in other people.
When was this concept, you said you had it copyrighted to use?
Yeah, I actually came up with it with class number 10, which was MIDB class 10. That was about, I think, 98 times 2000, right in there someplace. The days get kind of mixed up for me nowadays of how many years ago that was, because it was I have a long life, so I have a lot of things that have occurred. Ed.
Yes, sir.
Time for you, bud.
You see any shortcomings to RIDEM? You ever have a problem with it?
It's probably the nicest part about it. I mean, I believe that when you put principles together, the criteria that I use for principles is they need to stand the test of time and use. And if they can meet the test of time and use, and they do, and the best part about it is I'm not the guy using it anymore. A lot of people I've trained are using it. That's what brings the warm heart. It's not when you're able to do it, but when you can pass that on to somebody else and they're able to do it and be successful. In fact, I tell people all the time, my successes don't come from me anymore. My successes come through you. And that's where I feel good when I see you going out and doing the things that I've been fortunate enough in life to get to share with you and see you be successful. So I'm really a third and fourth party guy nowadays. In fact, I love to have met a student who was trained by somebody I trained, talking the things, saying the things that I told them, and I keep seeing that happening. And so it's good.
Is that part of the modeling?
Yeah, I think so. I think that the people, if in a model, the only way it can happen is if they believe in it and it works for them, because they would discard it. I mean, that's the thing about adults too, that you only keep doing the things you know are working. And if it wasn't working in a classroom, you get rid of it. You'd go another way. And that's the change model again. That if it doesn't work, if you're not having success, you're not keeping it. You're going to go another way, because it's like lecture and adult learning. If you're failing in adult learning, you're going to go back to lecture. So that's just what's going to happen, because you were successful. And the thing I say to people, when you look at the critiques at the end, a 5 is a 5 is a 5. So if you're getting a 5 on the post-critique form, and you're getting it for lecture, and then you do adult learning, you get a 5, you're saying, wow, there's no difference here, there's no reward. But the truth of the matter, the reward is not through you, the reward's through your students, who now have learned things before you were just touching on and they were just hearing. You were passing information we're passing learning on to you. And that's the significant difference between adult learning and the way we traditionally teach, which I call transmitted learning. I transmit, you receive. It's not a two-way dialogue. More? Go, please.
You've outlined how well it works in the MIDP program and how in the classroom environment. Any other areas that you can think of where RIDEM would be effective?
I cannot imagine a learning environment where it won't work. I just think it's again the universal part of it. I don't think it happens to be just this training environment, this law enforcement. RIDEM really will work in any training environment. And I get to see that because I often tell people that I have another fortunate station in life I get to be part of. Is I'm the president of our local Montessori school board. And we have a small Montessori school with 80 children, and here we're starting the kids at about 4 years of age. And RIDEM works on them. And I've trained the Montessori teachers on the RIDEM stuff, and they love it. And they see it happening every day. I mean, here's this little kid discovering something on his own. We really hope he learns to discover how to go to the bathroom on his own sooner. You know, when they're little 3s and 4s, we get some of that kind of stuff. So that's part of the process. You can cut that out. Edit it.
That's all right.
Yeah, it's good. Another one, Ed?
Of the 5 areas within RIDEM, what do you find most difficult?
I think designing the discovery things are probably the hardest of all of the 5 areas. You know, you don't get to design the experience, you just know it resides there. But designing a discovery moment takes more thought. You know, relevance, I can make the hook, I can make that happen, I can cause them to be involved, but causing that aha moment to take place and making them think about things and reach back in that gray matter and make those wheels turn a little bit. You know, and the other thing I think about when I think about an adult, I think about the fact he's like a computer hard drive. You know, he's got a limited amount of space up there, and every time he puts something on, he's got to discard something else. So he's got to, something you give him has got to be better than what he's currently got, or he's not going to change. And so if you want to change behavior, you got to do that. So you got to cause them to discover on their own that this is a better way to do business. And I'll ask you, did you discover on your own? You've heard a lot about adult learning. None of you had a real long-term formal training in this. Has your experience been that this is a better way to learn? And is it about learning as compared to teaching, as you've been done, as happened to you so often? Somebody has transmitted, stood in front of the room, gave you this, expecting you to have grasped it and wrap your arms around it and walk out of the room with it. But the truth matters, you didn't. You left it discarded on the floor. This is learning, and that's what this is really all about.
Awesome.
Well, thank you very much for spending some time with us.
It's a pleasure. You have the choice to carry it on. Okay, I'm at the kind of the end of the horizon. I'm at the end of the track. So it's really great to have people like you become practitioners of this and take it forward and carry it on. And I'm happy to share with anybody I think will take it and use it well.
Thank you.